Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us here at Railbookers for one of our online presentations. And this week, we're taking you to France, looking at our top 5 trips to France to consider perhaps for later this year, certainly into 2022. So thanks very much for taking the time to join me this morning. My name is Anna Davis. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager here for the UK team, and I will be your host this morning for our time together. Probably going to take somewhere between 30 to 35 minutes, depending on the number of questions that you have to ask. And hopefully towards the right-hand side of the screen, you should be able to see a questions box. Please feel free to type in any questions that you may have as we go through the presentation. There will be some time for questions and answers at the end. So without further ado, we will make a start. Now, I know that a number of you join our presentations regularly. Also can see that we do have some new customers with us this morning. So perhaps those of you who are already familiar with what Railbookers do and offer won't mind me just taking a few minutes right at the start to go over a few general points about our holidays before we delve very deeply into all things French in a few minutes' time. Just want to start with the news that we do currently have a great sale running until the 24th of September and offering savings of up to £350 per couple or £175 per person. That's all based on the number of nights, duration of the holiday. Lots more information available on our website, but certainly a great time to get something booked, have something to look forward to and on the calendar, whether that is for later this year into 2022 or indeed into 2023. Now, just a few things I wanted to mention on here, and we'll touch on most of these points actually as we go through the wider presentation, but just a few points about Railbookers and why customers enjoy traveling with us. We've been creating these independent, tailor-made, customized holidays for about 17 years now. So our team have a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge, and are very well placed to make recommendations and suggestions on the best routes, the best timings, the best locations for hotels. So our holidays are independent, they're not escorted, you're not traveling as part of a group, and that gives you the flexibility really to create the exact holiday that you want, with everything in it that you want and nothing in it that you don't. So as we go through the presentation today, and indeed as you look at perhaps holidays on our websites, in our brochures, all of those are really just there as a guide, a suggested itinerary, but there is complete flexibility in terms of the duration of the holiday, the departure date. If the train operates, if the train goes there, then so can you on a trip. So do bear that in mind as we travel through the presentation today, and also to mention that you can book up to 2 years in advance. So we are able to confirm rail holidays up to currently September 2023. If you are at the planning stage, if you're looking for some ideas, some suggestions, then those brochures that I mentioned, here they are, our digital brochures, all available on our website to download and to access that way. And you have a range from worldwide through to our Scottish trips, UK and Ireland, Spain, cruise extensions, luxury holidays. We also have our North American holidays with our sister company Amtrak Vacations as well. So a whole host of brochures there to give you some inspiration. As I say, please feel free to download those on our website. You will also get a follow-up email from this presentation that will have a link to access the brochures in there, and that will come through within the next day or so. Now we do, as some of you will already know, have a maximum flexibility policy in place. We've had this since the start of COVID. We continue to have it in place for all existing and new bookings made by the 30th of September, which gives you the option to change, cancel, postpone, amend your holiday up to just 5 days before departure to any holiday within the Railbookers or Amtrak Vacations portfolio within a 2-year time frame. So lots of flexibility has created a lot of peace of mind for customers, and if you'd like any more information on that, then please do give us a call on 0203 780 2222. Now, I mentioned that you are traveling independently. You're not part of a group. You don't have a tour guide. That does give you that flexibility to travel. Doesn't mean that you are entirely alone when you are away, though. Should you need assistance, should you have any issues whilst you're away, then you do have 24-hour support from our teams around the globe, because we have offices in the UK, of course, but also in North America, in Massachusetts, in California, in Toronto, and also in Sydney. So there's always somebody awake across the Railbookers team. You do have an out of hours number on your travel documentation when you go. So should you need any support or assistance, as I say, whilst you're away, then somebody is always available at the end of the phone to make alternative arrangements if you need to get home earlier, if you need to delay your return, whatever the issue may be. Then there is always somebody available to assist, and we do indeed have a dedicated guest relations team who look after you once you have booked, to answer any of those questions, particularly around COVID, of course, as we understand that remains a concern. Just wanted to touch on some of the rail partners that we work with worldwide. Here, some of them are on the screen. As I mentioned, we book with these partners to really allow us to book up to 2 years in advance, which makes us fairly unique in the world of rail. So you can book our holidays inclusive not only of the rail tickets, but the hotel accommodation, sightseeing, transfers, ferries in some cases, car hire in others, very much a one-stop shop in up to 2 years ahead. And just lastly, wanted to touch on what those rail operators have been doing in general terms to create and maintain a safe environment on board. So as you'll know, most of the train companies have continued to operate as an essential service through the pandemic. So that means that as leisure travel has started to resume over the last few months particularly, they're really well placed, well versed, well experienced at maintaining a safe environment on board. Now, some of those restrictions have been taken away. For example, at one point there was no food sales on board to encourage people to stay in their seats. Normal services resumed in that sense, so most of the bar buffet carriages on board the European trains, for example, are now open. But there are still a few restrictions in place to make it safer for everybody. So facial covering still required in stations and on trains. There is a continued emphasis on cleaning the trains, both in the stations actually and on board the trains during the journey in the common areas, but also at the end of each service, giving a deep clean. And we do continue to see an emphasis also on contactless ticket control, so using emails and apps to scan and sort of reducing as much interaction, passing of documentation between customers and staff on board. Again, if you have any questions on that, if there are any particular routes, any particular train companies that you'd like information on, then please do give us a call and we can answer those specific questions. So let's have a delve into all things French and look at our top suggestions, top 5 trips through France. Just wanted to start with a very brief few slides on travelling by high-speed train itself through France. Of course, the TGV here pictured very much one of the flagship high-speed rail services in Europe. First began operating in 1981, so very much ahead of its time. And here you see one of the very latest double-decker French high-speed services here. So you have both upper and lower deck seating in first class and in standard class, and you do have the option to select whether you'd prefer the upper deck for the views, or perhaps if you have reduced mobility, for example, you may prefer to be on the second lower level. But a great way to travel, and as I say, the French network has been improved, enhanced, and steadily journey times reduced year after year for the past 40 years. So really well connected and one of the most seamless countries really to travel through by train. Just to give you a short example of what it's like on board, here you have an example of a standard class carriage on board the TGV. You can see that there are luggage racks above the seats as well. They do fit a medium-sized suitcase pretty easily. You do also have luggage racks at the ends of each carriages as well, so ample luggage space as you travel. And then in first class, you'll see that the seats are a little bit wider, so you have, instead of 2 seats an aisle and 2 seats, you've moved to 2 seats an aisle and 1 seat, because they are a little bit bigger. Lots of comfort, reclining again. The power sockets available at every seat, and you do also again have those luggage space facilities there. You can probably just see towards the back right of that image, just before you were to go through the door, there's a luggage rack there as well for customers to use, so your luggage can stay close by. So that's a little bit about the travel experience on the train, but let's now have a look at some trips. I'm going to start with our Avignon and the highlights of Provence trip. This is a 6-day itinerary with a starting price of £949. It has you based in Avignon for 5 days, and we then organise various day trips from Avignon as the base to explore the wider region. So let's start with the journey first of all. You'll travel on Eurostar from London to Paris, from St Pancras to Paris, Gare du Nord, and then from there you will change to travel from Paris, Gare de Lyon, down to Avignon on the high-speed service. Now, a couple of things to mention here. Firstly, depending on where you are travelling from in the UK, we can be very flexible with the journey times and arrangements. So, for example, if you live relatively near to London, very easy to get you from home to Avignon in the day. We can book tickets from local UK stations as well, so we can take care of that from your local departure point to get you to London, then across the Channel and down to the south of France. Equally, if you live a little bit further outside of St Pancras in London, then we may overnight you in London the night before to start the Eurostar journey the following morning, or indeed lots of customers opt to break the journey in Paris and add a night in Paris en route. So lots of options depending on where you are in the country and at what times suit you best. There is also the option to travel via Lille, so a Eurostar to Lille, and then just a very quick platform change in Lille instead of a station change in Paris. A little bit less frequency in terms of the connections where that works, particularly at the moment as Eurostar is running a reduced service, but it's definitely still an option. So if that's your preference, please do mention that to our rail team when you inquire. So as I say, you'll travel down to the south, based in the beautiful city of Avignon for 5 nights. And whilst you're there, you do have a number of great day trips out to some beautiful Provençal villages of Roussillon and Les Baux de Provence. You'll also do some wine tasting. You'll visit the Pont du Gard as well. We'll have a look at all of these fantastic places as well. Very much a Roman theme in this part of France as well, as you'll see visiting Orange, Nîmes and Arles, all with fantastic Roman amphitheatres and construction. You'll also have time to visit the Van Gogh Museum in Arles as well. So lots to see and do, but not losing sight of how beautiful Avignon is as a base to explore itself. So Avignon here, of course, based on the Rhone River, and as many of the places we're going to look at today is UNESCO World Heritage protected because of its incredible palace, a palace of the popes, the Palais des Papes, as you see here in the background. It has fantastic walls as well around the ancient city, and the Pope lived here back in the 14th century. So it dominates the skyline, it dominates the city's history. It's a beautiful place to wander around, lots of cobbled streets around the old centres, the outdoor market, and lots of sort of cobbled squares to sip a glass of rosé and watch the world go by. So a beautiful city to spend any time in, and very well connected on the train network from Avignon Centre station to travel out to lots of the surrounding villages. Now, one of those day trips that you'll do is out to the Pont du Gard, as I mentioned. So this is actually organised as a small group tour, maximum of 8 people, and you'll travel through the Provence countryside out to those beautiful villages of Roussillon and Gordes. You'll also then visit the Pont du Gard here, and on the way back to Avignon, you'll stop in Saint-Rémy de Provence as well, famous for its antiques market. The Pont du Gard, as on the picture here, is the highest of all of the Roman aqueduct bridges and one of the best preserved. And it was built in the 1st century AD to carry water just over 30 miles to Nîmes, and it was added as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1985. So, as I say, that's included in that day trip and well worth a visit. It's a spectacular location. On the other day trips, you'll go out to Orange, so you'll travel here to discover, as you see here, one of the best preserved theatres really in the Roman Empire, and from there you'll take the scenic drive out to Châteauneuf-du-Pape and have plenty of time for some delicious wine tasting there in a winery. You'll also visit Nîmes, and the Nîmes and Arles really well located just on local trains from Avignon Centre. You'll get the ticket, you can jump on a train time of your choosing. You make the short journey to Nîmes, and you have some incredible sights to see here, including the Maison Carrée and also the double-tiered amphitheatre in Nîmes. As I said, very much a Roman theme, and that doesn't stop in Arles as well. So you have very much the provincial Roman capital of the area. Another amphitheatre awaits there, as well as the Vincent van Gogh Foundation, where you can see some of the best collection of Van Gogh there, and a city that really influenced his work. You can stay in Arles for dinner, or plenty of train frequency to get you back to Avignon for your final night there. So next, staying in the south of France, but slightly different location, we're going to look at the Côte d'Azur, Nice and Cannes trip. This is a 7-day holiday with a starting price of £699. Really straightforward itinerary this, again, taking you on Eurostar from London to Paris. You'll travel down to Nice. You're there for 3 nights, and whilst you're in Nice, you'll travel out to Monaco for the day, and then it's back along very, very scenic part of the French network. That not a scenic train per se, but a really scenic route. It hugs the coast and some fantastic views of the Mediterranean as you travel in that part of France. And you'll be then in Cannes for a 3-night stay before returning back on the high-speed network to Paris and back over on Eurostar to London. Again, possibly options to connect via Lille if that's your preference, but it is a straightforward transfer. In Paris, we do provide either metro tickets, or we can organise a private transfer, I should mention as well. So if you'd prefer to be met at the station and transferred across the city for your onward connection, we can definitely organise that for you too. So here we have Nice. Lots more to it than perhaps just the Promenade des Anglais, which is also very, very beautiful and a lovely coastal spot, of course. But it has a great old town. It's really easy to explore on the tram system, tram network, and lots to sort of delve into in Nice. And to visit during your time. Also great markets to visit, and some beautiful cafes out on the front to admire the Mediterranean views as well. You'll also have that day trip to Monaco. So you'll travel on a local TER French service from Nîmes straight into the heart of Monaco, have a full day here to explore and get a little taste of the millionaire's lifestyle here. But again, a beautiful old town where the palace and the cathedral are, lots to explore and lots of little back streets to get lost in whilst you're there for the day. And then lastly, you have your 3 nights in Cannes. Again, much more to this than the sort of film festival location. It also has a fantastic old town that you can climb behind. That's I think where this picture is taken from, with a view over the city. There's also a great museum there about the history of Cannes. So again, lots to explore, but also, great Mediterranean cuisine, great place to have some long lunches, some long dinners, and enjoy those warm evenings. Now, third itinerary, third holiday I wanted to share with you today is our Paris, Normandy, the Loire Valley and Bordeaux trip. So lots of different destinations included in this one. It's a 9-day holiday with a starting price of £1,889. So we'll talk through the itinerary before we delve into the destinations in a little bit more detail. So you'll travel again from St Pancras down to Paris on Eurostar. Now, I should mention at the moment, Eurostar are operating 5 services a day in each direction between London and Paris. In normal operating times, that does go up to nearer 18. So again, lots of choice for your departures there. So you'll be in Paris for a 2-night stay. Before then traveling out on the train to Bayeux, and you're based in Bayeux for 2 nights. You'll have time to explore the town itself, as well as having a private tour of the D-Day landing beaches whilst you're there. You'll then travel down to Tours in the heart of the Loire Valley, and you're based in Tours for 2 nights. And whilst you're there, you have a full-day trip out to the spectacular chateaus of CHENONCEAU and CHAMBORD. And then the final leg will see you travel down to Bordeaux. You're in Bordeaux for a 2-night stay with a day trip out to the Saint-Emilion vineyards. So some really fantastic experiences mixed in with some great city stays, a real mixture of experiences, which is true of many Railbookers holidays, but the combination here I think particularly special. So let's have a look at some of the things you'll experience on this one. So Paris, of course, a city that really doesn't need any introduction from me. I would just mention a few perhaps little suggestions of places to visit if you are visiting Paris, perhaps slightly off slightly off the beaten track. The Musée Marmottan, for example, houses one of the most significant collections of Claude Monet's paintings, and that's found right on the edge of the 16th district in Paris, almost not in Paris, but definitely worth a visit whilst you're there. The catacombs in the 14th district, a little bit eerie, but also I would highly recommend. You have the remains of almost 6 million Parisians there in a tunnel network built to consolidate the old stone quarries. And lastly, as is a theme through lots of my presentations relating to food and drink, the Rue Montorgueil market in Paris that is between the 1st and the 2nd district, definitely worth a visit. Some fantastic restaurants, bakeries, cheese shops, wine shops, you name it. You could spend hours there and you certainly wouldn't be hungry. So just a few suggestions of something slightly different to do if you've visited Paris before, or perhaps, as I say, just looking to go off the beaten track a little. So you have 2 nights in Paris before you move then on to Bayeux, a beautiful old town, lots to explore, of course, with the famous Bayeux tapestry. It is itself a beautiful cobbled street, half timbered, housing throughout the town, and some great Normandy restaurants there, full of creme fraiche, full of brie, camembert, and good local produce. But as I say, you do also, whilst you're in Bayeux, have a full day trip out to the Normandy beaches. So you'll be led by a World War II specialist guide to see some of the key British D-Day sites, including Longnes-sur-Mer, Arromanches, Gold Beach, before returning to Bayeux. Now, you do have the option to add in a few extra visits on the day trip to make it slightly longer. So if things like Pegasus Bridge, Sword Beach, are also of interest to you, then again, do speak to one of our specialist rail experts when you're putting together your holiday, because we can add in additional stops on the trip and make it a longer day if that is of interest. And I should mention, really, that's true of all of our excursions and sightseeing options. There's lots of flexibility there as well. So if there's a particular inclusion that isn't of interest to you, you'd like to swap it for something else, then please do mention that. Nothing is set in stone, as I say, so there's flexibility with every element of the trip. So next it's on to Tours. Sorry, there seems to be a bit of writing over that image. Apologies for that. Tours itself, a university town, it has a fantastic old town, as you see here with some of the timbered structures. It has a great cathedral with a fantastic organ, actually, if you happen to catch it when the organist is practicing. And it also has some great art museums as well, if that's something you're interested in. Amazing collections with Delacroix, Degas, some more Monet here, and Rembrandt as well. But one of the real highlights whilst you're staying in Tours is the day trip to the Chateau of the Loire, and you're going to visit 2 of the real big hitters in terms of the castles of the Loire Valley. Firstly, starting with Chenonceau. So you'll travel from the tourist office in Tours on the day trip out, stopping first of all at Château de Chenonceau, Then to Chambord, you do have lunch and wine tasting included, as well as one at the local vineyards before returning to Tours. Let me just give you a bit of a brief history of the Chateau de CHENONCEAU. It's a fascinating place if you've not been before. Has this spectacular construction over the water. It dates back to the 12th and 13th century. The only part of the original chateau left are the dungeons, and has a fascinating history, including it being at home to Catherine de' Medici, who, when King Henry II died, forced Diane of Poitiers out, and she made it her favourite residence, adding on a huge section of garden, some of the finest gardens still throughout the French castle history, to be honest. It was also converted into a military hospital in the First World War as well. Next, on to possibly the most famous of all, Chateau de Chambord, which was constructed by Francois I, and it is the largest chateau in the Loire Valley. Originally built as a hunting lodge because he continued to stay at Chateau de Blois and Amboise, but he used this as his very fancy hunting lodge. There's a lot of history connected to Leonardo da Vinci at Chateau de Chambord as well. He's thought to have been influenced or even involved in the design, not least with the spectacular open double spiral staircase that has to be seen to be believed. Honestly, it's one of the centerpieces of the chateau, but definitely worth looking at and walking up and down it, actually. But as I say, thought to be connected to Da Vinci, but I'm not sure that's ever been proved. But fascinating visit nonetheless. And then last stop on this visit through France, you'll go to Bordeaux, visit Bordeaux. So, of course, synonymous with wine, but also lots of other things to see and do here. So it is the capital of really the world's wine industry. It's got a long history of wine production, dating back over 1,000 years. And the city's 18th century centre is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now, if you can see on this image here, on the building on the left-hand side, it's also where, so Baron Haussmann, who ended up designing much of Paris into its modern capital with its sort of 6-story buildings, that's where Bordeaux is where he first started. So lots of the architecture and the buildings in the city centre look familiar if you are familiar with those buildings of Paris. It's also a really popular destination for a city break, actually, Bordeaux, because it's just a couple of hours from Paris. The high-speed section reduced its speed a few years back, so it's 2 hours and 4 minutes from Paris, making it a really easy getaway just for a couple of days as well. It's just started to absolutely pour down here, so I do hope you can hear me whilst the rain hits the window very, very loudly. I shall keep on and hope that you can. Whilst you're in Bordeaux, you will have a day trip out to Saint-Emilion. So again, you'll be driven out by a local guide, a small group tour, out to the medieval city of Saint-Emilion for a very, very special day of wine tasting. You'll visit 3 separate chateaux for the opportunity to taste and buy some of the world's famous wines there, and also enjoy some free time in Saint-Emilion's historic centre as well. So again, a real highlight on this holiday. So the penultimate trip I wanted to share with you is our gastronomic capitals of France. Now, as I say, most presentations that I present involve me talking about food and drink in some form, but this is a real treat if food and drink is something you are very interested in. This is an 11-day holiday with a starting price of £1,749, and you will take a circular trip around France, visiting some of its most famous gastronomic capitals. So you'll start with 2 nights in Paris before then moving down to Dijon. You're in Dijon for 3 nights, which also includes a day trip out to Beaune. You'll then move down to Lyon. You're in Lyon for a 2-night stay before travelling on a really spectacular rail route, actually, down through Nîmes, Toulouse, and up to Bordeaux. You have 2 nights in Bordeaux before a final night stay in Paris on the way home. So you take in some fantastic wine regions, the gastronomic capital of France itself in Lyon, and then finishing off with that time again back in the wine region of Bordeaux. So lots to taste and lots to enjoy. So looking at Dijon, is the historic capital of Burgundy. It's famous for its cuisine and fine wines all around the world, and it was home to the Dukes of Burgundy for over 300 years, and that history really dominates the city's architecture and the city's heritage. You also, of course, have plenty of options to taste one of its famous exports, that being mustard. Lots of mustard shops, lots of local ateliers and local producers in the city where you can watch them make it from start to finish and also taste lots of the different varieties. There's a lot more to mustard than just whole grain or not, let me tell you. I found that out when I visited there a few years back. And you also can sample, of course, a local speciality being kir, so where lots of the kir, the famous French aperitif, is produced as well. You'll have a day trip out to Beaune, just 30 minutes from Dijon, and you will also have time to visit the Hospice de Beaune, one of the oldest buildings in Beaune. Forgot my words there. So 15th century tiled roof is one of its most impressive, and as you'll travel through the region, you'll see that Burgundy really is famous for these tiled roofs, again dating back through the history of the Dukes of Burgundy to show their wealth, their authority. So lots of the older buildings across Burgundy have these magnificent tiled roofs, and easy to spot as you visit the area. Next, it's on to Lyon, one of my favourites, certainly, in France, in the heart of the Rhone Alp, and it's where both the Rhone and the Saône River meet, and as I say, recognised as very much the capital of French gastronomy. You've got also the surrounding wine areas of Beaujolais and Côte du Rhône, so again, not going to go hungry and thirsty when you're visiting Lyon. The historic centre of it itself, UNESCO World Heritage Site, also has a Roman amphitheatre remaining, and you also have a great climb up behind the old town for fantastic views over the city. My top tip in Lyon is not to visit without trying some of the fantastic local praline brioche. It's a pink brioche, which sounds a bit strange, but it's one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted, and a great place to try either in the old town or in the market Les Halles de Lyon, which are really accessible as well. So yeah, the praline brioche is certainly one to be recommended. And if that's not enough, whilst you're in Bordeaux at the end of the trip, you'll also visit La Cité du Vin, very much a museum to all things wine. It's located right on the bank of the River Garonne, and inside you will have a training session with a tasting session with a trained sommelier. You'll also have lunch in the panoramic restaurant, and you do have a massive selection of over 800 wines from 70 different countries. So very much a wine for everyone and everybody's taste, but a fantastic way to spend a few hours when you're in Bordeaux. Now, lastly but not leastly, if you're looking to perhaps visit all of the above, or certainly most of the cities that I've mentioned today, then our Grand Tour of France could be something to consider. It's a 14-day trip with a starting price of £2,699. So here you're going to take in Paris, Strasbourg, Lyon, Avignon, Marseille, Bordeaux, and back to Paris. So of all of those destinations, the two that I don't think I've mentioned yet, starting with Strasbourg. So after your first night in Paris, you'll travel on the TGV Est network out to Strasbourg. It's just a short journey, about 2 hours over to Strasbourg. Has a really distinct flavour, Strasbourg, because of its close position, of course, to the German border. That in itself has massively influenced its history and its cuisine. And again, it has a fantastic, beautiful old town known as Petite France, which has all of these beautiful timbered buildings. In the summer, lots and lots of beautiful flower baskets over the walls, and lots of beautiful restaurants. As you can see here, that timber roofed building at the bottom, that's a restaurant right down by the water, and there are many, many of those beautiful cafes and restaurants to enjoy the Alsace cuisine whilst you're there. And then finally, Marseille. So after you've travelled from Strasbourg down to Lyon to Avignon, you'll then visit Marseille, very much a bustling seaport, still very, very much in use now. Has a real mixture of old and new in Marseille. And of course, from a gastronomic point of view, very well known for its bouillabaisse, the fish stew. So again, lots to see and do here, whether that's climbing up to the Basilique Notre Dame right at the top for fantastic views, strolling along the port over to the other cathedral on the other side, the Cathédrale de la Major, or down to the modern port. Lots to see and do in Marseille. It's a great, great bustling city with a great atmosphere. And from there, you'll then travel over to Bordeaux to then travel back to Paris. So I hope you've enjoyed that whistle-stop tour of France, going through some of our top 5 trips to France there. I hope it's given you some ideas. The other thing I'll just mention, and I may have mentioned this, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but you do have the option with us, if you're just looking for a short getaway, just wanting to go away for 2 or 3 nights, then we can also arrange that. If you want to go to Bordeaux, to Lyon, to any of the destinations that I've mentioned today, then all of those are available as a 2-3 night break as well. Or again, if you're wanting to do a longer itinerary, then we can take care of that too. So hope I've managed to sort of relay that flexibility, that choice that you have available. More information available on railbookers.co.uk. You'll find a section on all of the holidays that I've mentioned today with the full itinerary, the route map, and the pricing right through to 2023. But if you do have any further questions, anything that you'd like to ask after the session has ended, then please do give us a call on 0203 780 2222. We are open Monday to Friday, 9 till 5:30, so available for any questions that you may have. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you now and see what questions you have to ask me, if indeed any that have come in whilst I've been chatting. Not too late to ask, and type away as you do. You can see a question about assistance that Railbookers would offer in the event that someone catches COVID whilst away on one of our holidays. Good question, and hopefully I possibly answered this earlier on before we looked at the holidays, but our guest relations team are there to support and assist exactly that, in exactly that way. So if you do have issues, need assistance, need our support whilst you're away, you're traveling independently, but you're not alone, and that's exactly why they're there, to help make alternative arrangements, to bring you home earlier in some cases, as we've done in the past with customers, to extend your stay if necessary. The guest relations team are on hand 24 hours a day to help with those issues, and that's really part of the support of traveling with a tour operator like ourselves, that we can provide that support. If you'd like any more sort of information, specific questions that you may have on that, then do please give us a call. I can see another question coming in about hotel accommodation, so let me take that. I'm just scrolling through, apologies. So the question is, what level of hotels do you provide? Good question, and the answer is really the hotel level that you're used to staying at and wanting to stay at. So most of our destinations, we have a 3, 4, 5-star properties to choose from, so that gives you the range of choice, the range in terms of budget, location, style, decor. We'll always make recommendations based on previous customers' feedback, but the choice very much is yours, and typically our holidays are based on bed and breakfast, on 2 people sharing. And the holiday will include the cost of the train tickets as well as that hotel accommodation on a bed and breakfast basis, and in most cases many sightseeing options included in the itinerary are included at no extra cost as well. So it's very much a one-stop shop for the whole package, but in terms of the accommodation itself, very much led by you and the accommodation type that you want to stay in. I think also worth mentioning that we can vary that across the holiday. So if you're traveling for perhaps a special occasion, an anniversary, a birthday, and you want to stay in a 5-star hotel perhaps for the big day itself, but in some of the other destinations you're happy to stay in a 3 or a 4-star, then we can vary that as you travel. Okay, I think that has covered most of the questions that have come in, so thanks very much for sending those in. And really all that remains for me to say is thank you very much for joining me. It's been great to take you around France for the morning. Hope, as I say, it's given you some ideas either for some last minute getaways this year or certainly further ahead into 2022. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Stay safe, stay well, and I look forward to seeing you again soon on another Railbookers presentation. Many thanks. Bye bye.